You probably step into elevators without thinking twice. You walk inside, press a button, the doors close, and seconds later you're several floors higher. To most of us, that's the entire experience. But hidden behind this ordinary ride is a business much bigger than the metal box you see. Because the person riding the elevator usually isn't the customer. Somewhere behind that simple ride is a building owner, developer, or organization that had to pay to put the machine there. And that changes everything, because elevators aren't really sold to passengers. They're sold as essential pieces of a building. And even the elevator itself is much bigger than it looks. Passengers mostly see the doors, buttons, and the cab, but hidden throughout the building are drive equipment, guide rails, controls, cables or other lifting equipment, door systems, sensors, and safety components, all working together every time that button is pressed. Getting the elevator into the building looks like the obvious way to make money. The equipment is delivered, specialized crews install it, the building opens, and the elevator starts carrying passengers. You might assume the sale is finished. But for the company behind that machine, installation can be only the beginning. Because once the elevator starts running, someone has to keep it running. Technicians return to inspect the equipment, test components, make adjustments, perform routine maintenance, and fix problems before or after something fails. And, unlike installation, this work doesn't necessarily happen once. It can continue for years. And this is where the elevator business starts getting interesting. A company may earn money when the system is first sold and installed, but that same elevator can keep creating service revenue long afterward. Maintenance visits, repairs, replacement parts, and eventually major upgrades can turn one installation into a customer relationship that lasts for years. That makes the service contract especially valuable. Instead of waiting for an elevator to break, a building can pay for ongoing maintenance under a service agreement. For the elevator company, that can mean scheduled work and recurring revenue from equipment that's already installed, turning a one-time project into a much longer business relationship. But here's the strange part. You can ride an elevator every day and never buy one yourself. The real customers are usually the people and organizations behind the building. Developers, property owners, hospitals, hotels, offices, and other institutions. They're the ones deciding what elevator system the building needs, who supplies it, and ultimately who gets paid. The first opportunity usually appears when a new building goes up. As developers plan apartments, offices, hotels, hospitals, and other multi-story properties, elevators become part of the construction budget. That creates the initial sale. Equipment, engineering, and installation needed to put a completely new elevator into service. But not every building buys the same elevator. A small apartment might need only a simple system, while a busy office tower may need several elevators moving hundreds of people. Hotels have luggage, hospitals move patients and equipment, and taller buildings create even more demanding projects. So the building itself can completely change what the elevator company has to provide. And these decisions can begin long before the building opens. While a project is still drawings, budgets, and engineering plans, developers and architects are already deciding where elevators go and what the building will require. That gives elevator suppliers a chance to enter the project early, sometimes before the first floor has even been built. But getting involved early doesn't guarantee the sale. Elevator suppliers may compete for the same project, offering different equipment, pricing, installation plans, and service support. The developer weighs those options against the building's needs. And when one supplier wins the contract, a project that existed only on paper becomes real business. Winning the contract is only the start. The project now moves through manufacturing, delivery, installation, testing, and final handover. Depending on the contract, payments can be tied to different milestones along that journey. So one elevator project isn't just one moment where money changes hands. It's a process that can stretch across months. Once construction ends, the relationship starts to change. The developer may have chosen and purchased the elevator, but now the building owner, property manager, or facilities team has to keep it running. The project has become an operating building, and that creates a completely different kind of customer for the elevator company. And this is why winning the original project matters so much. Once an elevator is installed, it can remain inside that building for decades. During that time, it may need inspections, maintenance, repairs, replacement parts, upgrades, and eventually major modernization. So the first sale doesn't just create revenue today, it puts a machine in the building that can create business for years to come. Here's where the business model really changes. Installing an elevator may create one large project, but once that elevator starts operating, it needs attention year after year. Routine maintenance, inspections, service visits, parts, and repairs can keep bringing the elevator company back to the same building long after construction is finished. The foundation of that recurring business is the maintenance contract. Instead of calling only when something goes wrong, a building can pay an elevator company to service the equipment on an ongoing schedule. That creates regular technician visits, predictable work, and recurring payments tied to an elevator that's already sitting inside the building. And there's a physical reason this recurring business exists. Elevators don't maintain themselves. Every day, doors open and close, passengers move between floors, and mechanical and electronic components keep working behind the scenes. Over time, that repeated use creates wear, which means inspection, adjustment, maintenance, and sometimes replacement parts. But routine maintenance doesn't mean nothing will ever go wrong. An elevator can still develop a fault and stop operating normally. When that happens, the building needs help quickly. A technician may be dispatched to diagnose the problem, perform the repair, and replace a failed component, creating another layer of service work beyond the routine maintenance visit. And when an elevator stops, the problem can spread far beyond the machine itself. Office workers get delayed, hotel guests wait with luggage, residents lose convenient access, and busy facilities can face real disruption. The more a building depends on its elevators, the more valuable fast, reliable service becomes, because downtime has a cost even before the repair bill arrives. But recurring service revenue isn't free money. To maintain thousands of elevators, the company needs trained technicians, service vans, tools, replacement parts, dispatch teams, and warehouses full of inventory. Every contract brings revenue in, but it also creates costs. The real business is making sure enough remains after all those elevators have actually been serviced. And there's another factor that can change the economics: density. If a technician has to drive a long distance for every elevator, time and fuel disappear between service calls. But when many elevators are concentrated in the same area, routes become shorter, and technicians can potentially reach more customers in the same workday. The installed base becomes more efficient to service simply because the elevators are closer together. Over time, the service relationship can become surprisingly sticky. The technicians become familiar with the equipment, the company builds a service history, and the building knows who to call when something goes wrong. A customer can switch providers, of course, but replacing an established service relationship means evaluating a new company and transferring that familiarity. That can make long-term customers extremely valuable. Eventually, an older elevator can create an even bigger opportunity: modernization. Instead of replacing the entire building or even the entire elevator, an owner may upgrade major components, controls, doors, or the cab itself. That can turn an elevator installed decades ago into another major project, giving the company a second large sale from equipment it originally put into the building years earlier. Put all of this together, and one elevator can create several different revenue streams across its life. There's the original installation, then ongoing maintenance, repair work, replacement parts, and eventually modernization. The amounts and timing vary, but that's the bigger business model. Sell the machine once, then potentially keep earning from the equipment and customer relationship for years. But there's a catch. Installing the elevator doesn't guarantee all of that future revenue. Depending on the equipment and market, building owners may have choices when they buy maintenance, repairs, parts, or modernization. That means the original manufacturer can face competition from other service providers. The elevator may already be installed, but the future revenue around it can still be fought over. So the real prize is often the maintenance contract. Building owners aren't just comparing price. They may also care about response time, technician coverage, parts availability, and reliability. Win that relationship, and one elevator can become a customer that keeps generating service work year after year. Now, imagine doing that not with one building, but with thousands. This is where scale changes the business. One maintenance contract may not look enormous by itself, but once a company is responsible for hundreds or even thousands of elevators, those individual relationships form an installed base. Every day, different units need routine service, repairs, replacement parts, or eventually upgrades. Instead of depending on one big sale, the company now has thousands of machines creating potential work across the network. And this is why a large installed base can be so valuable. Not every elevator needs the same thing at the same time. One may need routine maintenance today, another a repair next month, another replacement parts later, and an older unit may eventually need modernization. Across thousands of elevators, those needs are staggered, so work can keep appearing throughout the network even when new construction slows down. Put the whole model together and the flywheel becomes clear. Sell and install the elevator, win the maintenance relationship, keep servicing the machine, earn additional repair and parts work, retain the customer, and eventually compete for modernization. Then repeat that process across more and more installed elevators. The real power isn't one transaction. It's a network of machines and customer relationships creating opportunities year after year. And the elevator itself is becoming more connected. Modern systems can use sensors, controllers, and remote monitoring to track how equipment is operating. Instead of learning about every problem only after someone calls, a service company may receive information directly from the elevator. That adds a digital layer to the same installed machine and changes how thousands of elevators can be managed. The useful part is what happens when that data starts to look unusual. A change in movement, door behavior, or another monitored condition can give the service team a reason to investigate. Instead of always waiting for a complete shutdown, technicians may be able to inspect some developing problems earlier. It won't prevent every breakdown, but across thousands of elevators, even earlier intervention can change how service is delivered. Once a company is monitoring thousands of elevators, the next challenge is deciding where technicians should go. A service center can combine operating information with location, service history, and available technicians to help prioritize the next visit. That can mean sending a nearby technician with better context, and sometimes the right tools or parts already in the van, before they even reach the building. And every unnecessary service trip costs money. A technician can spend valuable time driving to a building, inspecting the elevator, discovering that another tool or part is needed, and then making another trip. Better information before the visit can sometimes reduce that wasted movement. Across a large service network, fewer unnecessary trips can mean lower operating costs and more technician time available for actual service work. And as more elevators become connected, the information itself becomes useful. One elevator produces only a small stream of operating data, but across thousands of machines, repeated patterns can start to emerge. How equipment behaves, which issues appear repeatedly, and where service attention may be needed. That doesn't replace technicians. It gives the physical service business another layer of information to work with. And this is where technology starts affecting the economics. Better information can help reduce unnecessary trips, improve technician deployment, and sometimes make parts preparation more efficient. That means more of the company's labor, vehicles, and inventory can be spent actually servicing elevators instead of being wasted between jobs. Across a large installed base, even small efficiency improvements can add up. Technology can also make the service contract itself more valuable. Instead of paying only for scheduled visits and repairs, a building owner may receive remote monitoring, operating information, and faster awareness of certain problems. That creates a broader service relationship around the elevator, and if that relationship works well, the customer may have another reason to stay with the same provider when the contract comes up for renewal. And once elevators are connected, the technology itself can become part of what the customer pays for. A basic maintenance relationship can be expanded with monitoring, operating information, reporting, and other digital service features. Those capabilities may be bundled into broader service packages, creating another recurring revenue layer around the same elevator that's already installed. But software doesn't replace the physical elevator business. A monitoring system can identify unusual behavior, but it can't drive to the building, replace a worn component, adjust the equipment, or modernize an aging system. The elevator is still a real machine inside a real property. Technology can make the service operation smarter, but technicians, parts, and hardware remain at the center of the business. Put it all together, and the connected elevator becomes more than a machine waiting for its next repair. The installed elevator can generate information, support better service decisions, strengthen the maintenance relationship, and potentially carry additional digital services. But the real advantage comes from combining technology with technicians, parts, and thousands of existing elevators, making the installed base more valuable to manage over time. Every elevator eventually gets older. The building may still be valuable, but the equipment inside it keeps aging year after year. Doors wear, controls become dated, components need more attention, and older systems can become harder to support. At some point, the owner may start asking whether another repair is enough, or whether the elevator needs a much larger upgrade. Modernizing an elevator doesn't always mean replacing everything. The building and elevator shaft may stay exactly where they are while major components are upgraded. Things like controls, doors, drive equipment, fixtures, or parts of the cab. So instead of rebuilding the entire system from scratch, the company can renew the most important parts inside the existing installation. And that can still become a major project. And modernization can involve serious money. A routine service visit might require one technician, a van, and a small amount of parts, but a major upgrade can involve new controls, doors, cab equipment, engineering, multiple technicians, and weeks of project work. That makes modernization much more than another maintenance call. It can become another major sale from an elevator that has already been in the building for years. So why spend so much on modernization? Because repairing an aging elevator forever has a cost too. One repair may look cheaper, but repeated service calls, replacement parts, technician time, and interruptions can accumulate over the years. Eventually, the owner isn't comparing one repair with one big upgrade. They're comparing the continuing cost and disruption of an aging system with the cost of renewing it. And this is the real lifetime value of one elevator. The company may earn money when it sells and installs the equipment, then again through maintenance, repairs, replacement parts, and possibly connected services. Years later, that same elevator can create a major modernization project. And once it's renewed, the service relationship can continue all over again. One machine can create multiple revenue opportunities across decades. Now scale that life cycle across the installed base. Thousands of elevators were installed in different years, which means they won't all age at the same time. Some are still relatively new, others are entering heavier repair years, and older units may be approaching modernization. As one group gets upgraded, another group keeps aging behind it, creating a continuing pipeline of future modernization demand. And the maintenance relationship can create another advantage. After years of servicing the same elevator, the provider may already know the equipment, its repair history, the building, and the owner. So when that elevator finally approaches modernization, the service company may already be in a strong position to compete for the project. A recurring maintenance relationship can eventually become a lead for a much larger sale. But all of that revenue is not profit. When an elevator company collects a large payment, much of that money immediately goes back out to run the business. Technicians have to be paid, parts have to be purchased and stocked, vans, warehouses, engineering, insurance, and support operations all cost money. The real profit is whatever remains after the company delivers the service efficiently. This is why the installed base can be one of the most valuable assets in the elevator business. A new elevator project may bring in a large payment, but it also requires equipment, installation labor, logistics, and project costs. Once the elevator is already inside the building, the economics change. That same machine can keep generating maintenance, repairs, parts, connected services, and eventually modernization for years. But the size of the installed base isn't the only thing that matters. Density matters too. If a technician has to drive long distances between scattered elevators, more of the day disappears into travel. But when many elevators are concentrated in the same area, one technician can potentially reach more customers with less driving. That can make the same service revenue much more efficient to deliver. And even short routes don't help if every repair requires a second visit. When a technician arrives without the right part or preparation, the company may spend more time driving, diagnosing, and returning to the same building. But if the problem can be identified and the correct parts prepared before the visit, more jobs may be completed in one trip. Fewer repeat visits can mean lower service costs and better margins. Replacement parts create another business inside the business. One small component may not look important, but multiply that across thousands of elevators operating for decades. Different parts wear out at different times, creating a continuing stream of demand. But parts revenue isn't free money either. The company has to source components, hold inventory, manage warehouses, and get the right part to the right technician. But stocking parts creates a balancing act. Keep too little inventory and a technician may discover the needed component isn't available, delaying the repair and creating another trip. Keep too much, and cash gets tied up in parts that might sit on a shelf for years. The goal is to keep commonly needed components close while sourcing less common parts without filling warehouses with inventory that rarely moves. And this is where scale can become powerful. A service company needs warehouses, dispatchers, engineers, vehicles, systems, and parts whether it supports a small network or a much larger one. As more elevators are added, some of those shared costs can be spread across more contracts. A larger network may also support better purchasing, more specialized teams, and denser routes, making scale itself another potential advantage. And once a service relationship is established, it can sometimes last for years. The provider becomes familiar with the elevator, its repair history, the building, and the customer's service process. A building owner can switch providers, of course, but changing an established relationship may require evaluating alternatives, transferring information, and onboarding a new team. That makes customer retention another important part of recurring service economics. Now the entire business starts to look like a flywheel. Install an elevator and it can join the service base. Service creates maintenance revenue, repairs can create parts demand, connected systems can add another layer, and years later the same elevator may need modernization. Then the upgraded machine goes back into service. Add more elevators to that cycle, and the network can keep expanding. And this reveals one of the biggest traps in understanding the elevator business. Big revenue isn't necessarily good revenue. A new installation can produce a huge payment, but much of that money goes toward equipment, manufacturing, transportation, labor, and project execution. Service payments are much smaller, but they can repeat across thousands of elevators for years. So the biggest sale isn't automatically the most attractive business. And this is the real power of the elevator life cycle. A machine installed today may remain in the building for decades. During that time, it can generate maintenance revenue, occasional repairs and replacement parts, connected services, and eventually a major modernization project. Then the upgraded elevator goes back into service. Multiply that life cycle across thousands of elevators, and you begin to see the real scale of the business. So the real product isn't just the elevator. The machine is only the center of a much larger relationship. Around it sit maintenance contracts, technicians, replacement parts, operating data, repair history, and eventually modernization. Multiply that across thousands of buildings, and the business becomes less about selling metal boxes and more about managing a long-term network of machines and customers. So how do elevator companies actually make money? They sell and install the machine, but that's only the beginning. Once an elevator enters a building, it can create years of maintenance, repairs, replacement parts, connected services, and eventually modernization. Multiply that life cycle across thousands of elevators, subtract the technicians, equipment, inventory, vehicles, engineering, and infrastructure required to keep them running, and you get the real elevator business. Not just selling rides between floors, but managing machines for decades.